Got yourself a new MacBook Pro? Are you waiting for one? Let's talk accessories. Hello and welcome back to Ellis Reviews, and thank you for subscribing if you have, and if you haven't subscribed, the button is just down there. The new MacBook Pro is an absolutely game-changing device for Apple and for us as users. I've been using the 14-inch version for the last couple of weeks and it's absolutely amazing, and it's just the base level version. I'm currently waiting on a maxed out, or nearly maxed out, 16-inch version to drop through the door. Well, drop onto my letter, but you know what I mean. But as is so often the case with Apple gear, it's the accessories that really make it a completely rounded package. And over the last few years, I've settled on a few accessories that really make my MacBooks work perfectly for me. Now, what I'm about to show you isn't just for the MacBook Pro, you can use them for the MacBook Air as well, but I've got 5 accessories that really make a difference to my life. My first MacBook accessory, admittedly, I don't use all of the time, but it is really useful in certain situations. And that's a second screen. And I think in particular, if you've got the 13-inch or the 14-inch version of a MacBook, it's a nice size screen, but occasionally you just want a bit more screen estate to do the stuff that you're working on. Now, you've got 2 options with this. The first one is an iPad. You can use something called Sidecar and connect your iPad, be it an iPad Pro, iPad Mini, iPad Air, whatever it might be. You can connect your iPad as a second screen, super simple, to your MacBook. And to do that, you just need to be signed in with the same Apple ID on the same Wi-Fi network and within fairly close proximity to each other. If you do that, you can then very easily share your screen from your MacBook to your iPad. It works really well, and I've never really had any issues with it, apart from once where this 12.9-inch 2018 iPad Pro would not, for love nor money, show up as a sidecar display. I have no idea why, it just started working one day, but that was just a slight blip on the sidecar radar. Generally speaking, it works really well. And really, if you've got a MacBook and an iPad of some description, I'd always recommend just using sidecar. It's the most obvious, most cost-effective way of getting 2 screens. However, if you haven't got an iPad, there's another option, which is just to use a different display. And obviously you can connect your MacBook to any, or pretty much any monitor you can think of. But recently, I was sent 2 external monitors from a company called Interhill. Now, they're not sponsoring this video, they just very kindly sent me 2 examples of their external screens, and there is a 13-inch and a 15-inch version. Now, I'll be honest, when these turned up, I didn't really know what to do with them, but I tried them, and they're really, really good, really impressive. So the 13-inch version is a 2K screen, and it's $199, and the big 15-inch version is a 4K screen, and that is $299. Not cheap, but not particularly expensive given how good these panels are. And they've got 10-bit color, they've got 300 nits of brightness, up to 600 nits peak brightness. They come with this kind of kickstand type thing, which reminds me a little bit of the Surface. It's not quite as good as the Surface, but it does work pretty effectively. It sits on your desk nicely. It's pretty solid, to be honest. The thing to bear in mind with these, they don't have a battery in them, you don't charge them, they operate as normal monitors and they take the power from your laptop, but they only draw about 15 watts of power, so it's not going to drain your laptop's battery, and most of the time if I'm using a dual screen, I've got my laptop plugged in to power anyway. And they're not OLED, they are IPS panels, but they're not far off OLED, actually. And looking at some of the comments and the reviews of these, a lot of people say the same thing. They're also a matte finish screen, which is good, and you also get loads of cables with it. You get Thunderbolt, you get, I think, another Thunderbolt or USB-C, and you get a couple of, you get one HDMI, and I think, for some reason, they send you a USB-A to USB-C. Don't know why that one's in there, but basically you've got all the connectivity you need to connect this to your MacBook. So Interhill, I'll put links to both of these in the video description. As I say, if you've got an iPad, just use Sidecar. It's cheaper, well, not cheaper, but if you've already got an iPad, it's more cost effective. If you haven't got an iPad, or for whatever reason you don't want to use it, then check out any monitor, really. But if you want to check out something which I recommend, then check out Interhill. I'm not getting paid for this, like I say. These aren't even affiliate links. I'll just put them in the description and go check them out. Now, the next accessory that I use semi-regularly for my MacBook Pro is a mouse, and in particular, the Logitech MX Master 3. This is one hell of a mouse. Most people seem to recommend it on YouTube, particularly people who work in video, and that's the main reason I use it. So day to day, if I'm just using my laptop to, I don't know, write stuff and do email, I'll just use the trackpad, because MacBooks have, without question, the best trackpad on the market. So this isn't a case of replacing the trackpad because it's rubbish. It's not that at all. I use this for a very specific reason, which is for video editing. There's 2 reasons for that. One of them is the ergonomics. It's just the most comfortable mouse to hold ever, and also configurability. Now, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I suppose 8, 9, nearly 10 buttons on here that you can customize whichever way you want. Customize it per app if you need to as well, which is really cool. So I've set mine up very specifically for Final Cut Pro. And if I'm editing video on my brand new MacBook Pro, which I do now, then this is an absolute godsend, really. I don't particularly like editing video with a trackpad. I find it a little bit fiddly, whereas with this, I'm just used to using this on my Mac Mini and it's fantastic. So if you want a traditional mouse, if you just prefer them, or like me, you want it for a very specific task, then I highly recommend checking out the Logitech MX Master 3. Now, you can't really have a MacBook without a decent case for it, and I have changed cases in the past, like as often as I change my trousers, which is quite regular. But recently, I have settled, not recently actually, a little while ago, I settled on this one. I've not had any reason to change this at all. This is by a company, I had to look it up, I bought it that long ago. It's called Innertech, they're the people that made this. This has been through quite a lot of traveling, a lot of being thrown around. I've used it primarily for my MacBook Air, but they do larger versions for the MacBook Pro. It's just been brilliant. It's got a lovely soft interior, which is very, very important, obviously. It's got this kind of front pocket here, which I tend to put things like dongles, although don't need quite as many dongles these days with the new MacBook Pros, but dongles, external hard drives, that kind of stuff. There's enough room in there for that. It's nicely padded without adding too much bulk, so when you put it into your rucksack, it just fits in very nicely. I like the look of it. I think they do different colors. I'll put a link in the description so you can check them out. I think the problem with cases, I've always found this, is that if you go onto Amazon and search for laptop case or MacBook Pro case, you get about 10,000 different options. They all look very similar. You've got no idea, apart from based on reviews, what they're actually like. And you can spend quite a lot of money on them. This one was only £15 in the UK, so it wasn't very expensive. I took a punt with it, and it was a really good punt, put it that way. I think it's quite handy just to speak to someone who has experience with a particular case. And Innertech, as I say, top marks. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I can't see any reason to get rid of this one. I'm going to use it for as long as I need to. Next is the laptop stand, and I featured this, which is the Boyata, I hope that's how you pronounce it, laptop stand in a big kind of accessory roundup video that I did a few months back. And it was one of my favorite accessories in that video, simply because it's so sturdy. It's not too heavy actually, it's quite light, but what I love about it is how sturdy the hinge is. It's almost too sturdy to the point where you can barely lift it up, but because you don't often move these around, you set it once and forget about it. Now, bearing in mind I have a very expensive 16-inch MacBook Pro on the way, I don't want to place it on a stand that feels flimsy. That's rather frightening. So the fact that this is nice and sturdy, really properly sturdy, gives me lots of confidence. And it looks all right as well. I think the hinge design is very nice. It's quite, is it Apple-like? Maybe not, but it is made out of aluminium, and it, like I say, feels very, very sturdy. It's got these sort of rubber things to keep the laptop in place, although it does have this lip here, and I suppose those protect it a little bit as well. And again, a little bit like the cases on Amazon, if you search for laptop stand, there's millions of them, and you never know which one to go for. This was a review unit that was sent to me very kindly by Boyata themselves, so thank you very much for that. Again, not sponsoring this video. I instantly liked it because of how sturdy that hinge is. You can angle it very nicely any way you want, but it's not going anywhere. You know, once you've got your laptop on there, it's staying on there, trust me. Fantastic laptop stand. There are many other makes out there, but this particular one is going to be put to serious use for my 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, something else which there's just loads of options for are USB hubs. Now, the new MacBook Pros are great in terms of ports. We have USB-C, we even have an SD card slot, which I was desperately waiting for. I never even put a HDMI port on there, so it covers a lot of bases. One thing it doesn't cover, however, is USB-A, and I still use USB-A peripherals. And what I use is this. This is the pluggable Thunderbolt 3 hub. It isn't cheap. I think it's about $230 on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. And this is such a powerhouse of a hub. It's basically got everything you need to plug into your MacBook. So we've got micro SD, full-size SD card, 10 gigabits per second on the front USB-C, and a 10 gigabits per second USB-A on the front as well. Headphone jack if you need that. But it's around the back where things get really interesting. So we have 5 USB-A ports, which are 5 gigabits, which is enough for a lot of stuff. There's gigabit Ethernet, 2 DisplayPort, and 2 HDMI, so you can connect 2 monitors to this whenever you need to as well, which is very nice. And there's even a Thunderbolt 3 96 watt input there as well. Built like a tank. You can take the base off. I think, so it can lay flat if you want it to, or it can stand like that as well. It's just a lovely bit of kit, and like I say, it's not particularly cheap, but you get what you pay for, I think. You get an awful lot of connectivity. You wouldn't need any other type of hub at all. Now, it's probably not the sort of hub you take to a coffee shop, but it's not particularly heavy. There'd be nothing wrong with doing that. This is more for having on your desk permanently, so wherever your laptop setup is at home or at the office, you have this next to it, put your laptop down, you plug this in, and away you go. Now, this might be overkill for you. It's nearly overkill for me, to be fair. So if that's the case, I will put a link to an alternative, cheaper USB-A hub, which gives you pretty much everything you need in terms of this. I'll put that in the description. But if you're a power user, or if you just like nice big chunky hubs and you've got a bit of budget to spend on them, then I recommend the pluggable, 100%. I hope you found that interesting, folks. That was my 5 most used and most important accessories for the MacBook. And these things don't change that often. Once I get something that I like, so for example, the Logitech, I can't see myself changing from that for a long time. The case, the Innertech case, again, no desire to change that. So once I stick with an accessory, I tend to be quite loyal to it. So I've spent a lot of time with these things, apart from those Intel monitors, but I'm blown away by those. Honestly, they're absolutely fantastic. Please do go and check them out. What are your favorite accessories for the MacBook? I'd love to hear what you rely on day in, day out for your MacBook. So get involved in the comments. And if you've still got some time, keep watching for a link to a recent video I did where I compare the M1 Pro and the M1 Max and give you some buying guidance on how to pick between those chips for your new MacBook Pro. But until next time, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you next time.